I was playing a viewer, Karim, and Adil's here with me. So I've been showing Adil some of the stuff I learned, and that way when Adil plays, he can hopefully not make some of my mistakes. So Adil's first time on this channel. So Adil, this is how the match went initially. This is called the King's Pawn opening. This is the most popular opening. The reason is because you open up your bishop here, and you also control the center. I was telling Adil, one of the things I learned as I started playing is whichever pieces that you have, they usually not only have more movement, but more squares they can control when they're in the center. So the opponent, Karim, does this, which is not necessarily a bad move. Usually when they do this, what they're trying to do is put the bishop here, because as you see, the bishop can target this pawn. So this is called a Fianchetto. That's the very technical term for putting the bishop here. So I do this. This is called a King's Gambit. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get my knight here, and I'm going to get my bishop out, and then I'm going to castle. So put the king here, put the rook here, and then I have a direct line of attack. It's a very risky, but it's a very aggressive play. So that's something I've been learning, because Adil knows that sometimes, whether in chess or whether in anything, I don't play as aggressively when I should. A perfect example, Adil told me for a year to tell viewers to subscribe, which, by the way, if you're watching, you like my channel, subscribe.
And like and comment.
And like and comment. It took me a year to do that. So the King's Gambit is a way for me to practice. Sometimes you just gotta do it. You gotta do it. You can't overthink it. So this is what I'm doing. I'm doing the King's Gambit. So Karim decides to up this pawn, and the computer says it's a fair move. Let's see what the computer analyzed he was trying to do. So according to the computer, it would have played out like this. The reason why, according to the computer, that he upped that pawn was to have support for the other center pawn. So that's why, according to the computer, he did that. Now, whether Karim was thinking that, we don't know. But that was why, theoretically, you would do that, because this pawn now has support, because I already have a pawn here. Because I already have a pawn here, if he just directly ups this pawn, I'm just going to capture his pawn. So he needs a support pawn here. So I keep going with my King's Gambit. I put the knight up here. The reason the knight goes up here, Adil, is not just to make room for the castling. It's also to control this square, because one of the things about making the king vulnerable here is, you see this diagonal? If he moves this pawn, he can move the queen out here and attack my king.
I thought you wanted to keep the rook away from the side of the board.
Yes, exactly. When you castle, the rook moves right here.
Oh, I see.
So that's another reason to castle, because you get your rook into the game. And the reason why a kingside castle normally is more defensive is that the king ends up here and the rook ends up here. You're being so aggressive with a normally defensive way of castling. And so ultimately my queen's got to be here, my rook's got to be here. So then I can directly attack here. That's the ultimate goal. Good questions, by the way. You see why I like showing Adil? Because Adil asks such great questions. He's a very inquisitive, smart guy. So we keep going. Now, remember what I taught you? Knight on the rim is not good, right? Because now he only has 2 squares plus these 2 to move to. He's wasted all of this side. So this is not the best thing to do. So I just go ahead. Now, the computer says I should have done something else. I should have just controlled another center square, which is not a bad idea. So this is something for me to learn in the future. The reason I wanted to bring the bishop out, I have the bishop targeting this weak square. Now, if you analyze the starting position, this is something I was showing Adil. This is the weakest square because you only have the king protecting it. You have no other things protecting it. And you don't want the king to be the only defender. Because if I have any other piece, exactly. If I have any other piece protecting my piece, then the king's checkmated. It keeps going. I don't know why he does this. So the only thing I can think of is potentially he wants to move this with support. So that could be something he's doing. Now, according to the computer, what he should have done, yeah, exactly. He should have tried to keep attacking the center. And this makes the queen available to move out in emergencies. But that's not what happens. And so now I castle. This was what I was telling you about, Adil.
Is that called the King's Gambit?
Yes. So my King's Gambit's almost finished now. Okay. The only thing I need to do is move the queen here. I've castled, so I've sort of made my king a little safer, although it's not as safe because this pawn is already up here. So as you can see, it's a very aggressive play, but it also makes the king a little bit more vulnerable. So I'm almost there at the King's Gambit. I've castled kingside. So now the rook is in the action. Rook's ready. The bishop's ready.
Can you explain how it's aggressive?
Yes. So imagine if these 2 things aren't here, if the pawn and the knight aren't here, Watch where I can move my queen.
Oh, okay.
Then the queen, protected by the rook, can directly checkmate him.
Right.
So you're basically telegraphing to him, because he obviously, if he's thinking about this, he knows, oh my God, this person's really trying to attack right here. And the other reason it's kind of aggressive is that look at all these pieces here not being developed, right? There's all these pieces here that I'm sort of just keeping here. I'm one track minded attacking.
Got it.
Right. So that's why it's very aggressive. But that's a really good question. And the other thing is, before I got my king to safety here, my king is really exposed. So he moves the knight over, which gives me another plan. Because now that the knight's over, check out what happens. This square is now blocked, so the pawn can't move. Why is that important? And actually, now that I mention it, this is why. I know why he moved this. He thought I was going to move my knight here. Now, why would I move my knight here? If I move my knight here and I have a bishop here, notice here, right? I'm also having two pieces attack, so that can checkmate him. So he moved his pawn here to prevent my knight from going here.
Oh.
Yeah. But knowing that, he shouldn't have moved his knight here, because now this pawn can't move up here to protect this square, which my knight can move to. And then again, we have a double attack on here, right? So that's what I do. He better see it, but he doesn't see it. And even at this point, if he sees it, the only thing he can do is move this pawn over, because he can't move this pawn, he can't move this bishop, it's trapped, he can't move anything. So the only square he can free is here, right? So this is a very, very good move. See, the computer knows too. The computer knows he has to move that one. But Karim, my viewer, doesn't see it. He's pretty new at chess. So watch what happens. He thinks, oh my God, I get a free pawn, right? And that's part of this King's Gambit, is that they think they're getting free pieces, but actually they're setting themselves up for failure. So boom, checkmate. There's only a king defending it. So if I'm defending a piece that's attacking, I checkmate him, and his king has nowhere to go.
Right.
I'm sort of doing almost like a fried liver. A fried liver is when you use the knight and the bishop to coordinate an early attack that can lead to a fork or a checkmate. So I just did a modified fried liver. Normally, the knight would be here, but because of the way he played, my knight actually occupied a center, and then it was able to checkmate him. So this was it. This was a 7-move checkmate. Normally, chess games go a little longer than here, but through circumstances, through my aggressive play, and through some of his mistakes, it made it so I checkmated him in 7 moves. So that was a little 7-move checkmate that was sort of a fried liver, sort of a King's Gambit.
Cool.
Yeah, guys, Adil is a really quick learner. So one day, I'm sure Adil will play, and potentially we can analyze one of his games. So one day, we'll get Adil on. Thank you, guys. Talk to you guys soon, man. Make sure to press a like and subscribe and leave a comment. Let us know, what was your quickest checkmate / how often do you do 7-move checkmates?